All right. So we're in chapter 2. So as we look tonight, I'm going to sneak back to chapter 1 because in the collection, in the idea there, if you were to look at a Hebrew, and I'm going to actually read out of a Jewish-leaning, Messianic Jewish-leaning Bible, they actually take the last 2 verses of chapter 1 and bring them into chapter 2. Because Hosea chapter 2 is where we'll be. But we'll pick up on 10 and 11 of chapter 1. Because in the way they designed that and are put together. So we'll be dropping back to pick them up. In fact, the first 3, verse 10, 11, and in verse 1 are kind of a thought, so to speak, or a paragraph or an idea there in there. So we'll go through that as well. So tonight, my intent is hopefully to get through verse 13 of chapter 2, as we look at restoring the covenant promises. Is there is the TLV's version here. So I'm going to read out of the TLV. Tree of Life, again, it's a Messianic Bible, and it's out of the Jewish nature. It says, "Yet the number of the Bnei Israel will be like the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured or counted. Instead of, you are not my people, being said to them, they will be called children of the living God. Then the descendants of Judah and descendants of Israel will be gathered together. They will appoint themselves one head, and they will go up from the land, for the day of Jezreel will be great. Say you to your brothers, Ami, and to your sisters, Rumah. Contend with your mother, contend, for she is not my wife, nor I her husband. Let her put away her fornication from her face, and her adulteries from between her breasts. Or else I will strip her naked, and expose her as in one day she was born, on the day she was born. Then I will make her like a wilderness. Yes, I will make her like desert land, and I will let her die of thirst. I will have no compassion for her children, for they are children of prostitution. For their mother has practiced prostitution. She who conceived them has been shameful, for she said, let me go after my lovers, who are giving me my bread and my water, my wool and my flax, my oil and my drink. Therefore, see, I will hedge her with thorns, and I will build a wall around her so she cannot find her path. Then she will chase after her lovers, but she will not overtake them. She will seek them, but not find them. She will say, let me go and return to my first husband, for it is better for me then than now. But she did not realize that I myself gave her grain, the wine, and the fresh oil. I lavished on her silver, also gold, which they had made into Baal. Therefore I will return and take back my grain in its season, and my new wine in its appointed time. I will snatch away my wool and my linen for covering her nakedness. So now I will uncover her lewdness to the eyes of her lover, and no one will rescue her from my hand. I will also put an end to all her rejoicing, her feast, her new moon, her Shabbat, and all her modim. I will also devastate her vines and her fig trees, of which she said, there are my payment that my lovers have given to me, but I will turn them into thicket, and beasts of the field will devour them. Then I will punish her for the days of Baalim, to whom she would burn incense, adorning herself with her rings and jewelry, going after her lovers. But me she forgot. It is a declaration of Ananiah. So as we look at these, and we'll get back up to the first couple verses there. If you look back on Hosea chapter 1, verse 10 and 11 for you. 10 says, yet the number of the sons of Israel will be the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured or numbered. It will be in that place where it is said to them, you are not my people. It will be said to them, you are the sons of the living God. And the sons of Judah and the sons of Israel will be gathered together, and they will set for themselves one head, and they will go up from the land, for great will be the day of Jezreel. So as we look at those 2 verses, in light of what we saw last week and the week before, a couple weeks ago and last week, what is different about 10 and 11 verses 1 through 9? What has changed in Hosea as he writes this? Or what has God changed in this?
If she continues down that path and refuses to change, he'll make it pretty hard on her.
Okay.
Is that the way you want to put it?
Well,
10 and 11, he's saying that they're going to multiply and they're going to reconcile Judah and Israel.
so what is Hosea doing for them?
Positive
Yes.
instead of all negative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from our view, as we look at it, then what is Hosea giving them?
Hope.
What is hope? Yep. Hope is, yep. There you go. He's prophesying that God, in a time and space ahead of this time that they're in, is going to bring what? He's going to bring who together?
Them too.
All 12. No, well, yeah, in the thing, but right now he's talking about
Before the marriage?
No. This is after the marriage. Remember we talked about last week. He's writing after the fact. But what Hosea is talking to there is he's prophesying to the children of Israel, right? Yeah, he's using Gomer and himself as the example, but here particularly he's talking about it because where else have you ever heard the idea that the number of the sons of Israel will be like the sands of the sea? Abraham's covenant. Abraham, God told him there he was going to be. What did he tell Israel? You're going to continue to be blessed to the point that you're going to have children upon children, just as multitude as the stars in the sky and the sand of the seas. It can't even be counted. So Hosea, being a good prophet, understands that, and he's saying that, but he's giving them a future. Is this future? Because my question back to you is 10 and 11 happening then? No. In the process where they're at in that time that he wrote, or is it looking to the future?
Future.
Yeah. How far in the future?
Children in Revelation 9.
Because are the children of Israel, have all the tribes gathered back together yet?
No.
In its entirety?
No.
All the scatteredness of the Jewish people, have they gathered back? So is Hosea talking to that time, or is he talking to a time that's even greater, further in the distance than us? And I think he's talking to something that's further up in the future than us. Even though in 1948, Israel came back, but there's still Jewish people who are part of the tribes that are not came back to this point where they says we cannot measure our need number, and we'd be in a place where it said to me, no longer are they called you are not my people. It said that they will be called the sons of the living God. Anybody remember what Ezekiel 36 and 37 is about? Take a swipe over to Ezekiel 36 and 37. We won't read it because it's pretty lengthy, but it'll remind you of what it's about. Because this is what Hosea is painting here. Does those titles look familiar to you?
Valley of the Dry Bones.
So what happened during that time in a nutshell? The bones were what? They came back to life. And as Hosea says, you are the sons of a living God. That's the idea here, is that he's going to bring the two tribes back together. And he's going to, for lack of better terms, bring them back to life, so to speak. And how does he do that? What does it say in verse 11? And they will set for themselves one leader. Jesus. One head. Jesus. Because has that happened to this point? Has the Jews been brought under one leader, one head? No. So the only person it could be talking about, I believe, and the only one it could be is that it'll be under Jesus, the one head. And I was kind of lacking last week, but I've kind of got a better. As we look at the great will be the day of Jezreel. when we talked about Jezreel last week, what did we talk about?
The Valley of Abundance.
It's the Valley of Abundance, but it was also where all the battles and destruction. What battle's coming? Armageddon. Jezreel is that place. Armageddon. It's the same. God is using it all over the thing. So as we look through that process, Hosea is prophesying to them then, with them not really having a clear understanding, but as God uses him to share out, is the idea there is that the sons of Judah and the sons of Israel will be gathered together, and they will set for themselves Jesus, one head, and they will go up from the land, and for great will be the day of Jezreel, or the battle, or the idea is there. But it is abundance. In that, when Jesus comes back and does what he does, there's a change in everything that's going to happen in that time. So we see
the kingdoms won't be divided anymore.
that's the Judah and Israelite will be again under there. And what do we read in Revelations? What do we read in Revelations? Yeah. Who's around the throne?
12 tribes.
The 12 tribes. Right? That'll be around the throne. So bring that. Does that mean every Jewish person is going to be a part of that philosophy? No. Again, that's the key for me. That's the key. The ideal here is that as they come together at whatever time and place that God brings them together as a nation again, or as Judah and Israel under Jesus, in that time and space, it will be a remnant. There's always a remnant. It's never the whole. It's like it's the same as when we talk about the grafting. The grafting is not everybody. Not everybody gets grafted into the root. That's Jesus. Not everybody does. It is there, and that's why when we read the scriptures in the New Testament, we read the idea that some of the Jewish people have been cut off, just like there, and some might be regrafted in, and again there. So that's why it's a struggle sometimes. When we look at future things and events and all the ideas that go around that, and you struggle with the idea that that we're grafted in. So if we're grafted in, then that kind of makes us all one. But you read things like this where God's clear that, for me anyway, right now, as far as I see it, it's clear that God has some things that he's going to accomplish with his children. So it's kind of I'd say catch-22 for me. Just trying to put all the scripture and read and understanding everything in light of all the scripture, not just my little picky things and stuff like that. So, and it goes on in verse 1. It says to the brother Ami and to the sisters Ramah. Do we remember what Ami means?
Yes.
Huh?
Low-landing.
Yeah.
You're not my people.
So if I take away the low, if your low is the not, so the are my. Yeah. So Hosea is now bringing them back to say that even though we talked about it last week, Hosea is clear that at that point in time the punishment is coming. Correct? There's no going to be if, buts, ands about it for the Israelites at that point in time. They're going to get captured. They're going to get taken. They're not going to be God's people at that time. He's been clear. But there will come a time that he's going to go from say you're not my people to saying you are my people. What's that for? Where's that hope in us? That's our hope, right? Is God's mercy, is that in his mercy, he's called us to salvation. And now we went from being his enemy, being not his people, to being his people because of that. And the same idea here is there, that God's punishment is going to happen. They're going to be clearly called, not my people. That's the neatness of how Hosea put this together, how God put this together through the writing of Hosea and the actions of Hosea, and that he called a child, not my people, and to give that. And now he's saying that you are. And then he goes on to say to your sisters Ramah, and what was it was low Ramah, so not, no mercy, no compassion. Now God's saying what to them through Hosea? I'm giving you passion. I'm giving you mercy. I'm extending that to y'all. Even though I'm going to send you down the road of captivity, you have the hope of my mercy coming back to you. You have that hope is in you. And then when we go to verse 2, it goes on to contend with your mother, contend, for she is not my wife, and I am not her husband, and let her remove her harlotry from her face, and her adultery from between her breasts. So what is Hosea saying there? What has happened at this point in the game in verse 2? No, it's right now. What can we take away from in verse 2? Yeah, but what does he say? For she is not my wife. So what does that mean? Yeah, that's right. They're divorced.
They're divorced?
Yes. And God's saying to the children of Israel, we're divorced. Your sin we're divorced. We're separated. Your adultery has separated you from me to the point of divorce. I have called you no longer my people. That's kind of that. So we are divorced, just like they are. So at this point in the game, they're divorced. And then he goes on to say, what's he say? Contend with your mother. Contend.
Turn around.
Yeah.
Change your ways.
Change your ways. And who's he talking to do that? Well, yeah, but from a Gomer, Hosea functionality, who's he talking to contend with the mother? The children. The 3 children. Hey, you need to talk to your mother. Let her know we're divorced. Your harlotry and prostitution has separated us. I can't take it no longer. I've done it. And so what has God called to the children of Israel? The same thing. Your harlotry, your prostitution, your easing us to fall back into the world and fall about to the people around you, that has separated us to the point that I've clearly cut you off right now. You're cut off. We're separated. We're divorced. And that's why I think he chose the names he chose for the children. So it's that. And he goes on in verse 3, he says, lest I strip her naked and set her forth as on the day when she was born, and make her like a wilderness, and make her like dry land, and put her to death with thirst. What's that a picture of?
Desertion.
Okay. Yep. Well, yeah. So when we think about when you read the scriptures and you read into that, and God talks about clothing, having clothing of the flower, those type of things. When we think about clothing versus not clothing, what's the takeaway with when we hear that God has clothed someone? Protection. What else? Acceptance. We're there. So when we talk about nakedness, what is that? I think you said humiliation. But more importantly, what? If you're naked and you're exposed to everything there. You're exposed. You have there's nothing there for you to gather with. So when you're naked in that thought process, and I think he's saying there to the children of Israel, you're naked. You have went too far and you're now naked. I've stripped you of anything that I had for you to the point that you're naked. So what does that mean for the children of Israel? Because when God was with them, what happened when they went to war with someone? They had protection. They won. They were able to win if they were following God's rules.
He's going to remove that.
Yeah. And then he goes on, and when we think about a wilderness, what do you think when you think about wilderness? What's the idea there? What's the picture?
They were dependent on God.
What? Yep.
For food, for manna,
But
water.
exactly. But when you just think about the natural wilderness, the desert, what do you think in that light? What's that picture of in our?
Left to die.
well, yeah, it's empty. 'Cause is there anything of value in the wilderness? Anything to, like you said, God had to give them everything in order for them to get through it. So Hosea is praying to the children of Israel that he's prophesying to. You are like it's in the wilderness. There's nothing there for you. With God has put you in the wilderness, it is nothing of value there. There's no protection there. There's no lead there. There's no. They can't do anything in the wilderness, so to speak. There's no value of the wilderness there. Also, I will have no compassion on her children because they are children of harlotry, for their mother has played the harlot. She who conceived them has acted shamefully, for she said, I will go after my lovers, and who give me my bread and water, my wool and my flax, my oil and my drink. Therefore, behold, I will hedge up her way with thorns, and I will build a wall against her so that she cannot find her pass. So what's...
Baal's not pursuing Israel. Israel is pursuing Baal.
Yes. And more importantly, Israel thinks that Baal's given them is the one that's given them everything.
Right.
It's just like Gomer with Hosea. She's saying, "No, they're getting all these people. All my lovers, they're taking care of me." That's what she's basically saying. Children of Israel was telling God the same thing, right? As they sinned and as they pursued the false gods and the temples and all the adultery and all the fornication and stuff, all that stuff, as they pursued it, what were they saying to God's face? Even though they didn't necessarily say it. They were saying what to him? I don't need you because they're taking care of me. I'm getting what I need from right here. I don't need you no more. And what do we do sometimes with God? We get a little prideful, we get a little thing, and we get a little puffed up about ourselves, and we say, hey, I got this, God. Take a break. Take a knee over here on the sideline. I got it. I can handle it. We kind of do the same thing. And in some cases, we've caught ourselves, at least I can say that I've fallen into that ditch far enough along that I look a lot like Israel, as far as just thinking this was taking care of me and not really realizing or self-realizing that God was taking care of me, even in the midst of some of my stupid. Because we're going to find out. And what does he do in verse 6? What is Hosea saying?
Put stuff in the way.
Yeah. Yeah. So the idea there. So all of you, I don't know, in the European theater, over in Germany and stuff, a lot of the hedges that protected were hedgerows. They were hedges. I mean, they were thorn-ridden hedges. In fact, if you fall in them, they're quite painful. Didn't realize how much thorn was in there until I accidentally did that one day. The guy I lived with, the couple I rented from, he was a farmer, and he had fields, and we'd go, and anyway, fell into one by accident. Not the...
Did the cows get in?
No. Well,
Did the cows get in?
I'm sure they did,
just curious.
but they didn't stay in there long, I guarantee you.
Yeah.
Better than, I guarantee you that if they experience what I experienced, it's better than electric fence, because them thorns hurt. They were not nice. But the idea here is what? That Hosea is saying, I'm going to put a hedge. God's saying to the children of Israel, eventually I'm going to put a hedge around you so you can't go off no more. You can't. And what is that hedge going to be for them, for the children of Israel at this time? What's about to happen to them? Captivity. So God's going to put them in a hedge and say, tag, you're stuck. You ain't going nowhere. I'm going to ensure that your path, that you have to come back to me, because you're going to just run around in the midst of this captivity and not have any value out. So, yeah. So he goes on, he says, she will pursue her lovers, but she will not overtake them. And she will seek them, but they will not find them. Then she will say, I will go and I will return to my first husband, for it is better for me than that. So what's she sees, or she's going to see the light, right? That's what Hosea is saying. That all this is happening to Gomer, she's going to see the light. And we'll see that as we look at as we get into 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll see that. But right now, for the children of Israel, it's the same idea. He's going to put a hedge, captivity, and there will come a time in the midst of that captivity, they're going to do what they've always done, right? What's the traditional Israelites process? Well, God does what God does, breaks them. They get there, they come back to Him. They they go so far, then they start going back down, and it's a roller coaster effect. Same idea here, that God's going to put them into captivity. He's already prophesying that you're going to come a point that you're going to realize I need to go back to who? Gomer's going to go back to Hosea, and the children of Israel is going to go back to God in the midst of that. Because why? And have we ever, what story, New Testament story kind of reads to the same as verse 7 there? There you go. Prodigal son. The New Testament reads kind of the same thing. He gets to a point where he realizes, you know what? For all what I thought I didn't have or didn't want, I'm better off just being the slave back there than me running around doing what I'm doing here. Verse 8, now she does not know that it was I who gave her the grain and the new wine and the oil, the multiplied silver and gold for her, which they used for Baal. So who's been providing?
God has been providing.
God's been providing the children of Israel because Hosea has been providing.
Did it go from God through Hosea?
No. The idea here is it's two story. So Hosea has been keeping up with Gomer, even though they're divorced. He's keeping up, and he's the one that's been providing her with the food, the gold, the silver. No, well, and then pictures of what has God been doing for the children of Israel. Even though they had thought they were doing it all and that Baal was taking care of them and all this stuff, God said, nope, I've been giving it to you all along. So that's the parallel. It's a kind of a parallel idea. It's using Gomer and Hosea to say that, hey, I've been giving this, the grain, the wine, the oil, the multiplied silver, and the gold for her, which they were used for. Even though Hosea gave it to Gomer, she was using it for Baal. Even though God had been taking care of Israel, giving Israelites there, they would have been using it for worshiping Baal, worshiping not God. And the neat thing, the Hebrew word for Baal there, it's kind of a two-parter. It is Baal, as we think of it, and what we've always thought of as we read the Bible, it's the God that they worship and everything. But it also means husband in Jewish, Hebrew language. The subset of it, or the base of it, it means husband. So again, she not only has been worshipped there, but again, which they use for Baal. And the idea, though, is that she has been using it to despise Hosea, not in spite of Hosea, she's been using there. And again, it does mean the worship of Baal, as we know it there. And therefore, I will take back my grain as harvest time, and my new wine in its season. I will also deliver my wool and my flax from them, given to cover her nakedness. So now I will uncover her lewdness. Well, let's go. It's 9. So Hosea has said that he's been responsible. He's kept up with her. God, again, the children of Israel. Therefore, I'll take back my grain in harvest time. So what is God saying to the children of Israel? I've been taking care of you. Now what's going to happen to them? I'm taking it back. I'm leaving you by yourself. It goes back to what? I'm leaving you naked. I'm leaving you alone. I'm leaving you vulnerable, abandoned. You're going to pay the price for what you've been doing up to this point. And so now we'll uncover her lewdness in the sight of her lovers, and no one will deliver her out of my hand. I will also cease all her joy, her feasts, her new moons, her Sabbaths, and all her appointed times. Again, as Hosea writes this, and as he prophesies to the children of Israel, what is he saying to them now? I've been taking care of you even underneath all your wandering and not there. I've been taking care of you. I'm going to remove it, and I remove it to the point of what? And we talked about it in the other earlier verses. What when we think about nakedness or lewdness, when we think about that, what is the key there? Is that God's going to remove everything to the point that the Jewish Israelites will not be what?
They won't even have a name. He's gonna take that much.
They won't be taken. Yeah, they won't have. They will be out there for a period of time. They're going to be out there on their own. I'm taking it out. You're going to be totally vulnerable, naked to the world. To there, you're going to surrender to the idea that as the Assyrians bring them under captivity, is that they'll be there, and that's the ideal here. Is that there'll come a point in their understanding that they'll understand clearly what they did and why they're sitting where they're sitting there. They might not right now, as he's initially prophesied, but as we look at, like I said, 3, 4, 5, 6, as we move through the chapters, we'll see clearly that God brings them to that realization through the way he does it. And he goes on to say, and I will make desolate her vines and fig trees, and of which she said, these are my wages, which my lovers have given me, and I will make them a forest, and then the beasts of the field will devour them. So I will visit the days of her bells upon her, when she used to offer offerings and spoke to them, and adorn herself with her earrings and jewelry, and go after her lovers, and so that she forgot me, declares Yahweh. So as we conclude out on this, there is just the ideal here is that that in the midst of what they thought was okay, in the midst of what they thought was, the ideal for me is as Hosea is telling the children of Israel at that point in the game, and again, he's prophesying to them. So I don't know that they see clearly what Hosea is really saying to them. I think some of them still believe because they obey the Ten Commandments, they go to the tabernacle, they do the feast that they're supposed to do. Because they do that, no matter what they do outside, they're doing that, so they're good. God's not talking to them. You know what I'm saying? I think that's the picture here is that as he prophesies this to them and foretells to them what is going to happen to them, I think he's facing Israelites, these children of Israel, he's facing a nation that says, I'm not guilty. I can check, all my checks are checked every week. I checked them off. They're good.
But no heart change.
No.
Just go back right back to the same old thing.
Because they saw the check marks as their way in. God had said, here's the Ten Commandments. God had said, you do these things. God said this. And so they were doing those checklist things. But to your point, their heart was where?
Not the same place at all.
Yeah. Their heart was pursuing Baal. Their heart was racing away from God. Their heart was in the idolatry and fornication and adulterous of surrendering to the world around them. Again, we talked about it over time. We've talked about it several times. The children of Israel, God, when they took the land, when he brought them out of the wilderness to take the land, his instructions to them was to do what? Destroy what?
All the Canaanites, all of them.
Everything. When he sent them to why did God want them to destroy everything?
Remove the sin.
So they would worship false idols. They would marry people who worship false and then fix that.
Because God knew their heart. God knew that they would be trapped by the things around them. And if they left them in place, then they would get caught up in it. And we've all said it before. We're supposed to be the light of the world, but a lot of times the world enters us and not us changing them. And that's the same with the children of Israel. God was clearly understood his people. He clearly understood us. That in the midst of things, he understands the fact that we will surrender a lot of times quickly or faster than We should. We will fall into the trap or whatever that trap might be.
So a note in my study Bible that says, ever since the Exodus, verse 11, ever since the Exodus from Egypt, Israel had intermingled the worship of the Lord with the worship of false gods. So they were doing they were worshiping the Lord, but they were also worshiping.
Yeah, that was
That's what about the check
they're
mark.
doing the check mark. They went to the temple. They went to the feasts. They went to, and they didn't kill nobody. And they didn't steal from somebody. They could check it off and say, I did. They said their prayers 5 times a day. They did all the things that they had written to do because they had this piece of paper in their head they could check off. Then for them they were what?
Trying to live the law.
Well, they were good. Well, that's true, but from their perspective, it wasn't about the law. It's about they said God said do X, I did X, so I'm good. No matter how my heart was, no matter how disconfigured, violated my heart was in this process. That's the whole reason the Sermon on the Mount came about with Jesus, was because he was clearly trying to say to him, the law came, the law is good, you can't obey the law. And oh, by the way, the law is just not about a physical output. It is a heart thing. It's a surrender thing. It's a mind thing. It's all about that. The law is good. The law only became bad because men got involved in it and try to make it their checklist thing.
We can't do both.
No. But my point being is that Jesus was clearly saying that I didn't come to kill the law. I came to make it better, to fulfill it. And I want you to understand that it starts in your heart, because what comes out of the heart is, it's us. If it's coming out of us, then it's in us. And so that has to be fixed first before we can't be obedient to the law, because God is clear. The only one that could do that was Jesus. He did it. But anyway, so in that light, I appreciate it. We'll be in 14 and we'll finish up chapter 2 next week. And anyway, thank you much.